Yes? No? Awesome. All right. On behalf of Conservative McGill, I'd like to thank all of you for coming out today. My name is Adam Wilson, and I'm the president of Conservative McGill. And I will be facilitating our discussion today with Conservative Party leadership candidate Kevin O'Leary. Before we get started, I need to go over some general housekeeping rules. Please understand that this is a peaceful gathering meant to have those in participation share ideas and thoughts in a constructive and accepting environment. Those wishing to state opinions, questions, or comments must wait until the end of the talk. Those wishing to disrupt the rights of those who have been invited to speak or the rights of those who have taken the time to attend today's event will not be tolerated. Anyone that chooses to disrupt this event will be asked to leave and escorted out. We ask those wishing to protest today's event exercise their right to do so outside of the event room, so that all sides can exercise their rights of free speech and expression today. Now that that's out of the way, let's talk about the format for today's event. After I welcome Mr. O'Leary, he'll give a speech, and following his speech, we will break into a question and answer period. The question and answer period will consist of questions from the audience, as well as pre-submitted questions that were submitted by students prior to today. At the conclusion of Mr. O'Leary's speech, I will ask people that wish to ask questions to please raise their hand. Representatives from Conservative McGill will then randomly choose students to approach the microphone in the middle. Due to our time constraints, each person will only be allowed to ask one question, with no time for a follow-up comment or question. It is possible that more people will line up to ask questions than we have time to go through, and it's also possible that we will ask for more people as volunteers to ask questions. So without further ado, join me in welcoming Conservative Party leadership candidate Kevin O'Leary.
Chers amis québécois, c'est un honneur d'ici ce après-midi. You know, people say I can't speak French. C'est pas vrai. Mon français devient mieux chaque jour. I'm working on it. I used to live here in Montreal. I was born here, and I'm trying to get my chops back, but hopefully it's by memory and just immersing myself in it, which is what I'm doing. I'm glad I could come out here today to speak with you because what I'm most happy about as I crisscross the country is to see young people engaged in the body politic. That matters a lot to me because actually decisions being made by politicians in this country today affect your future like never before. And we really have a decision to make collectively as a country going forward into what direction we're going to take, and I'll explain it. People ask me every day, why are you doing this? Why are you leaving your business career to pursue politics? And let me explain my motivation. About 2 years ago, I started teaching graduating cohorts of engineers. I like teaching engineers before they go out into the world because about a third of the class, and this is true in many cohorts, are going to pursue entrepreneurship. And I'm a huge advocate for that. Entrepreneurship is not about greed, it's not about capitalism, it's about pursuing a personal freedom. It's about finding a path to create something, solve a problem, domestically or globally, and build something that helps people all around the world. That's the essence of entrepreneurship. And I feel that anybody that's had success in doing so, and I count myself into that body, should give back to the next generation that wants to come forward with that. And I'm going to share a few ideas with you about what I've learned in my journey, because the essence is not about boasting of success. That's irrelevant. It's giving you the path of least resistance. In other words, if I can help you not make the mistakes that I made, then I've given something very valuable to you. And when I think about the role of government, it's to create a very rich soil where you can plant your seed, your idea of how you'd like to grow your family, your business, and pursue your life in Canada, and make it so. Because when I grew up, that's what Canada was. It was blue sky, the land of opportunity. A place where if you had an idea, you had a dream you wanted to pursue, whether you were an artist, a poet, an entrepreneur, this was the place to come. I am actually the son of Lebanese and Irish immigrants who came here not knowing what the future would bring. Hopeful that Canada could be that place where they could plant their seed, grow their business, grow their family, and that's exactly what happened. Now I want to give back. There's no question about it. So going back to my motivation, I noticed something that really disturbed me in the last 24 months. When I teach at Notre Dame or MIT, and I compare it to what happens when I teach here at, let's say, U of T or Waterloo, or even speak to you today. Generally, after an evening cohort and discussing entrepreneurship, I'll have a beer with the students, and everybody in Canada says to me, listen, we know you're very active in the United States. Can you give me a Rolodex opportunity with Apple, with Uber, with TA Associates in Boston? What about Dallas? Looking for a way to take their entrepreneurship motivation and set up business in the United States. And I say to them, why would you want to do that? You just graduated from the most valuable cohort in Waterloo, robotics. You're on par with MIT. You can compete with anybody in the world. Why don't you let me fund your growth here in Canada? Which I'm happy to do. Well, they say, I don't want to pay 53.8% tax. I don't want to be paid in dollarettes. And besides all that, I can't hire the team I need to grow a business. I'm going to go to California, Texas, Boston, Florida, build my business, sell it, and come back and buy a cottage so I can hang out here in the summer. That's not cool. That reminds me of the mid-90s when doctors would leave Canada to pursue their careers in other countries, including the US and Europe. That's very troubling for me as a Canadian who wants to see this country succeed, but that's not the straw that broke the camel's back for me. My entry into this race occurred hours after I read that document from the Trudeau government that told me that for the next 38 years, this country would run deficits so that when that was over, the 36 million people that live here would be $1.5 trillion in debt. That means that every child you have will be born into close to $50,000 of debt on the first breath they take. The same for their children and their children. To dig out a deficit like that will take multiple generations. That means that almost 50% of your tax dollar will go to pay the interest to banks that are not in this country that lent the money to a government that was so irresponsible that it couldn't figure out a way to grow the economy to provide for you. Instead, it borrowed the money on your credit card. You should be pissed. I was. I said, I'm not going to let that happen to my kids. I've got a 20-year-old son and a 23-year-old daughter. I am not going to let Trudeau bury them in debt for all of their lives and their children's lives and their children's lives. The reason this is happening is the social contract we have in this country, the benefits we enjoy in education. This is a world-class institution. McGill, Harvard, MIT, you say those words in the same sentence. You are so lucky to be here. You can go anywhere you want with this brand behind you. That's one of the things we provide in this country. Number two, catastrophic health care, any kind of health care. We're the best at it in the world. The social net we guarantee Irish and Lebanese immigrants that come to this country. They don't have jobs the day they arrive. That's okay. We're Canadians. We provide for you. The arts, things that we pursue as people because we enjoy our lives, all of that, it all works when the economy is growing at 3%. If you go back and look at the last 50 years of Canada, its glory years were when it could just grow enough to provide for all of that. This is not about being a capitalist. This is about creating jobs for people so that they can provide for themselves and the economy. And we've lost our way. Let me explain it in very pragmatic terms. We saw something remarkable happen just 30 days ago. The surprise election of Donald Trump. No matter how you feel about him, he is, in fact, the President of the United States. He made campaign promises that are very important to Canadians, and here's what they are. It's not just immigration policy. He campaigned on a policy of pro-growth, on pro-jobs, on lower taxes, lower regulations, on making the American economy more competitive. Now, if I were Justin Trudeau and I heard that message prior to the election, I might have said I don't care, because the chances of him winning are very low. But that's not what happened. He did win. And in the next 90 days, he's going to make the United States a vicious competitor for capital. So if you're going to build a car plant or a new factory or a new technology opportunity, you're going to go to the path of least resistance. You're going to go to an economy that's very accommodative for the flow of that idea and capital, which makes me very worried about Canada. We need to be competitive. We don't need the lowest taxes. We don't need the most deregulated environment. We just need to be competitive. Now, I would have thought that maybe they would have thought, wait a second, let's hold up on using cap and trade. There's a better way to do that so that we're not punitive and we don't scare away the possibility of growth in this country. But that's not what's happened at all. When Trudeau came into power, the country was growing at 1.5%. That's 50% of the engine that we need. Then it went to 1%. Then it went to 0.9%. Now it's at 0.7. That means that everything we fund now is done with debt on your credit card. Yours, not mine. When I came through, my age, we didn't have that. We balanced budgets. You are going into debt. And I think you should really worry about that because it's really not fair to you. If in fact, 20 years from now, half of your taxes pay foreign debt, why is that good for you or your children? It would be better to figure out how to make this economy grow. That's the real opportunity. So that when you graduate, your opportunities to pursue whatever you wish. I don't care if you're a poet, a historian, a technologist, an entrepreneur. If the soil of the country is as rich as it was when I planted my seed, you would have the same opportunity. That's all I care about. That's what I care about. I want you to have the same thing. Now, we're going to have a real debate in this country as to whether you would like to go down the path of debt or growth. That's what the election is going to be about. I'm going to win the leadership race, and then I'm going to crisscross this country back and forth, meeting with you. Because here's what you should know. I'm a numbers guy. Many of you know that. There is no majority for any party, not the Liberals, not the Conservatives, not the NDP, not the Green Party, not any party, unless they can win 60% of your vote. You are now the empowering determination of the direction of this country. Simply the numbers. No other way to do it. So when conservatives say to me, wait a minute, I'm a SoCon, I'm a big C conservative, I don't believe in gay rights, I don't believe in legalizing marijuana, I say to them, you must be kidding. Look at the numbers. If you can't get you to vote, there'll be no majority mandate for any party. I have a 23-year-old daughter that said to me, I did not vote conservative, Dad. I voted for Justin Trudeau. And I want you to know when you start this journey that you're going on, that if you can't get my vote, I'll make sure you lose. And what she said to me was, look, I believe in my reproductive rights. I'm a 23-year-old woman. Are you backing me up on that, yes or no? I believe in the legalization of marijuana. Are you backing me up on that, yes or no? LGBTQI, yes or no? Are you going to march in a gay parade, yes or no? This is not a question of a politician that is trying to dodge the answer. It's yes or no. And my answer to her was yes in every case. I'm an expansionist of the Conservative Party. I want it to become your party. I want you to be proud of it. I want you to be part of it. I will actually want you to invest $15 and become a party member and vote for it. But only do it if it's providing for the future you want. The body politic all around the world is changing. In France, in Colombia, in the FARC vote. In Britain, you saw recently. In cantons in Switzerland, certainly in the United States, the message is clear. People like you are sick and tired of getting BS'd by politicians. You want the truth. In addition to that, you would like some executional excellence. In other words, if you're going to be promised something, you want to see it delivered. There's a difference in that tonality between being a politician and spinning all the time down the center line, always worried about are you offending somebody or not, and basically putting in front of people a decision. Do you want to grow this economy at 3%, yes or no? Here's how I can do it. Either you believe me or you don't. What I'm telling every politician in this country, in terms of my mandate, is I care about three things. Jobs, jobs, and jobs. I'm not a capitalist. I'm a jobologist. I care about jobs. And so what that means to me is everybody gets in sync with this mandate. If a politician opens their mouth and doesn't create a job, they're wasting oxygen. It's that simple. We solved so many problems by getting our country competitive again. Do you remember how you felt the morning after we won in the Olympics in hockey? It was a moment of pride across the country, regardless of where you lived. It didn't matter. Or your background, or your race or religion. You were happy that Canada won. Number one in the world. You should feel that way about your country every single day. You should feel that we provide for our people, we're competitive, and we're a place that any race or religion, Lebanese, Irish, Greek, Italian, I don't care, you can come to this country and pursue happiness, entrepreneurship, or any other dream you have. And in order to do that, we have to grow. The soil has to be rich. Today, the soil is poison. You can't grow a weed in Canada today as we watch our economy grind to a halt. That's a big problem. It's got to be reversed. I'm going to share with you my 15 years of watching people pitch on Dragon's Den and Shark Tank. You'll find this interesting. I'm going to give you three, I'm not going to call them secrets, but three observations that you may find very useful in your life. When people have a dream and they get an opportunity to pitch it and maybe get it financed, that's a magic moment in their lives. Doesn't mean they'll be successful, doesn't mean the business will work, but what can they do to increase the probability of success? And so I've watched thousands of pitches, and I'm going to share with you three attributes found in every deal that actually got financed, not only in the United States, but in Canada and in England and in Australia, where the Dragon's Den format plays on their television as well. People think the Dragon's Den was found just in one country. It's on in multiple countries. Here they are. If you watch people pitch and get in front of others, can you articulate the idea in 90 seconds or less? That ends up being more important than anything. It's the definition of leadership, your ability to communicate where you want to go and why it's worth following you there. That is, in essence, the beginning of what being a leader is, to articulate the opportunity in 90 seconds or less. That is found in 100% of the time when people were successful pitching on Dragon's Den and Shark Tank all around the world. Number two, they were able to explain, and usually this is a team, 2 or 3 people, why they were the right team to execute the plan. What did they have in their past history? What experience do they bring to the table that makes you realize that, yes, you understand the vision, but you also understand the path on how you're going to execute it? Now, when those two things happen, and I've been there thousands of times, the room starts to sizzle like an isotope, because all of a sudden people get excited about these people, their vision, and their leadership. And here's the last one. This is the killer, because the air goes out of the room in seconds when this one doesn't work. You have to know your numbers. I have seen people that have achieved tremendous success where there's multiple bids for their opportunity. And yet, when they were asked, what's the size of the market? How fast can you grow? What's your break even? All the things that you measure, these are applicable to pretty well every discipline. They didn't know their numbers. When you put those three together, you're unstoppable. Something you should think about no matter what you pursue in your career. Ability to communicate, stand up in front of people, where you want to go, be able to answer questions about how you're going to get there, and back it up with numbers, you'll be successful in whatever you pursue. Trust me, that matters a lot in communication. And I think it's something worth pursuing anytime you can. It's just the ability to think forward. Now, if you're interested in a country that grows, if you're interested in pursuing entrepreneurship, and about 25 to 30% of the people in this room do, and that means the other 75% are going to work for you, and that's okay too. That's about the stats, by the way. Because no matter what you want in your life, the Canadian dream should be the one that you pursue. I don't want to see any of you graduate and leave this country. Then I failed. Then the country failed you. But that's exactly what's happening. Our best and brightest pursue their dreams elsewhere. That's not okay. I'm going to change all that. I'm going to make us competitive with policies that make sense. I'm going to clear a path for you so that you want the soil that I had, you're going to get it. And then I expect you to pursue your dreams and do what every Canadian has done for generations before you. Pursue theirs too. That's what made this country so incredible and what will make it great again. There's lots of challenges, there's no question about it, but growth, growth, and growth is the answer. Being competitive, because Canadians do not lack in anything. We are the largest border on earth, enjoy the most peaceful border with another country, had the longest history of success doing that. In every resource, we're number one. So ask yourself one question. Where is it written in the Constitution of Canada, or on your passport, or anywhere? Where is it written that you have to settle for mediocrity and incompetence in government? Where? You don't have to. And you shouldn't. I've decided to personally take on any government, municipal, provincial, or federally, that is hurting our ability to grow this country. And I've started to do it by communicating directly to you. I enjoy a following of over 4 million in social media. Many politicians didn't take it seriously. Let's take one in case in point, Kathleen Wynne. I saw her going off the rails in Ontario 2 years ago. I started my open letter program directly to taxpayers there. I am a resident of Ontario, have been since December of 2010. I pay 53.8% tax. I see it wasted. I see the government wasting money on all kinds of initiatives that don't work, and I'm seeing jobs by the hundreds of thousands leave Canada. She enjoyed a 48% popularity when I started. Today it's 16. I promised her I can't fire her. She doesn't work for me, but I can make damn sure she doesn't make the next election. She's at 16%, and I'm not finished yet. Last week, a farmer in a meeting like this came up to me before I started talking and said, Mr. O'Leary, would you please read this before you speak? And out of respect, I did. I didn't know what the letter was. I opened it up. It was this hydro bill for $71,600 for 1 month, a family farm. The actual cost of electricity was $6,100. The rest was the political BS added to his bill for all the mistakes her government had implemented. I wrote another letter, took her down another 2% in the polls. I won't stop. I work for you. I've never had a job in my life, ever. Not a full-time one. This is the first time ever I'm taking on a role to work for the Canadian people, full-time. And when I see incompetence and mediocrity, I will not tolerate it. We will turn this country into a very competitive place that provides for all the dreams I enjoyed when I was young. You deserve the same. Don't let anybody ever tell you that you have to go in debt for the rest of your life, and your children should have the same, and their children should also be buried in debt. Money spent on people you will never know, ever. Justin Trudeau will be long gone, and you'll still be paying those bills. Think about that. I'm going to rip out his support from people between 18 and 35 over the next 2 years. They won't be there for him in the next election. He promised you jobs. He lied to you. He promised you a balanced budget in 2019. He lied to you. When someone lies to you, there should be a cost. Think about that. Better to tell the truth, good, bad, and ugly. Communicating the truth should be your compass for the rest of your life. Don't take any more BS from politicians. Be done with that. Start dealing with reality, and let's work together to build a platform that gives you what I had. That's all I want for you. That's it. Questions? Does anybody have any questions?
Okay, so these two tall blonde boys are going to go around and just put up your hand if you have a question, and when they pick you, just line up behind this mic in the middle, and then you guys can go ahead and ask your questions. While they do that, I'm going to ask you one of our pre-submitted questions that students did beforehand, so I'll give you that.
Pre-submitted question number 1.
All right. So Liam Galligan, a U3 student at McGill, asked, do you think the cost of housing in major cities is a major problem? What steps would you take to make housing more affordable?
Yes, it is a major problem, particularly in cities like Vancouver, Toronto, and now ever increasingly so in downtown Montreal. The reason that is occurring is the supply and demand problem. If you look at the zoning regulations, and let's take Vancouver, the most extreme case, they need to increase the amount of land that's available for housing by 30%. That would take the pressure off housing, particularly in single family and in condominium development. The regulatory environment is too tight. That's the problem. There's not enough supply of housing. If you want to see housing prices be affordable, you need more of them. All the government contortions and manipulation on pricing of housing will end badly. It always does. You can't do it. If there's not enough housing, you have to create more. And that's the solution.
You might have to hit the on button. Just flip it up on the top.
Hi, my name is Jennifer. Thank you so much for taking your time to come here and speak to us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
My question has to do with immigration in particular. I know you're the son of an Irish and Lebanese immigrant, and you've talked a little bit about your plan to fast-track immigrants that are skilled into Canada so we can keep on growing our economy, right? I'd like to ask you, first and foremost, about your reaction to certain discussions that have been raised about immigration like Canadian values. And second of all, I'd like to ask you, conversely, when it comes to xenophobia and anti-immigrant immigrant violence, or xenophobic violence, as we've seen too painfully not too long ago, if you have any plan to deal with that and battle that appropriately. Thank you.
3 questions. I'll try and answer them quickly, starting with the last one. When my Irish dad died here in Montreal when he was only 36 years old, and my mother married an Egyptian national who joined the United Nations. So for my entire youth, I lived in places like Ethiopia, Tunisia, Cyprus, Cambodia. Every 2 years, our family moved. Now, I didn't know it at the time when that was occurring, but I've lived in pretty well every geography in the world over 40 years. The tolerance you get by actually being in a culture is through education. And what we're missing in Canada is you can't form a bill to eradicate hatred or phobia of any kind of culture. You have to educate children at the ages of 4, 5, and 6. There's 2 elements of our educational system that are missing. Tolerance for cultures and religion, and also financial literacy at that age. Those are the 2 things I'm going to change in our educational system. What someone wears, how they want to live their lives, we should accommodate all of that in this country. And I learned that as a child in Cambodia. What headdress was worn in the street did not define who a person was. It was their style, it's their culture. We have to accommodate that. That ends up being a competitive weapon for this country. If we're a place where you're a Syrian or Persian coder, which are very strong in mathematics, and they can't get in to work in the U.S., let's let them work here. What I'm going to be providing for people like that is not only will they get a passport, but their wives and children will get passports so that they can grow their family and make Canada their home. Ours will be a society where if you want to build a business or a family, we're number 1 on your hit parade. That's the deal. That will always be the deal. But we've got to build into our culture the tolerance of education. You can't eradicate hatred from somebody who's been taught it when they were young. It's almost impossible to do, and no bill will do that either. You do that when you're young to understand who you are and where you fit and why everybody's the same. That's the plan.
Thank you.
Hi, I don't know if this is working. Hi, I'm Sabrina. I'm a U1 International Development
A
student.
little closer to the mic, I might hear you.
Hi?
Okay, that's
Oh, there we
better.
go. Okay,
That's
hi.
better.
I'm Sabrina. I'm a U1 International Development student. I'm mostly asking you for a little bit more details on what your vision for a competitive or an economically competitive Canada looks like, and how do you think that this will affect environmental and social policies that are currently in place?
Great. Okay. So let me start by saying I actually graduated from the University of Waterloo in environmental studies under Sally Lerner. If you go Google her, you'll realize she's now become a legend globally. She had a vision 30 years ahead of her time. She defined leadership this way. I was, I think, maybe the 3rd cohort that graduated, and it was a combination of architecture, planning, and engineering. But she said the definition of leadership would be someone who could accommodate the growth of an economy to provide for its people, but at the same time be a steward for the environment for future generations. That's a balance. That's a very difficult balancing act. And of course, Sally now, she's 100% right. So let me tell you why cap and trade doesn't work. A lot of people think, oh, that's the way to do carbon taxation. Wrong. If you have a rich company with a big balance sheet and lots of capital and low cost of borrowing, they don't ever have to stop polluting. They simply buy credits in a cap and trade system, which is a crazy initiative, because small companies that don't have that capital have to innovate and abide by the fact that they can't buy credits. They have to stop polluting using innovation. Why allow a big, fat company with 15 smokestacks to keep buying credits? How stupid is that? A better strategy is to say, wait a minute, we're going to agree, we're going to work with the Paris Accord and find reductions in emissions in industries are emitting. Let's agree on what those will be over a 15-year period. You keep the money, you innovate, you create the technologies, and then let's sell them to countries that are really the big problem. Asia and China and India. Every embassy that Canada has should have an officer that sells carbon sequestration technology that we develop here. When you extract gas, we have amazing technologies here that we could be selling to countries that are actually 40% of the problem. It's a whole new way of looking at this. Canada's not the problem. We are actually punching above our weight. We have 1.2 trillion acres of wetlands and farmlands and forests. In many years, their carbon sinks. They absorb between 2.1 and 2.6 tons of carbon per acre. People don't realize that. Study this and you'll realize, yes, you want to control emissions, but cap and trade is a bad strategy. That was your last question. You talked about the economy. Here's the plan. We do not need the lowest taxes in the world. We simply need to be competitive. For us, it has to be looking at Mexico versus the US versus us. And we need the regulatory environment to be the same. Whatever they set is their goal, we have to at least be competitive so that if somebody wants to build, let's say, a new AI company here in Montreal, which is actually happening, they would want to hire you coming out of McGill. But if they have to attract, let's say, $100 million to set it up, they want to be paying the same taxes their competitor in Massachusetts is paying. So I'm just going to get us in the same ballpark so that we can compete on ideas and environment. And if we are the most inclusive country where you can hire engineers from Syria or you can hire engineers from Iraq, we're going to be the winner on that one. That's the plan. This is all about providing the soil. That's it. Thank you for your question.
Okay, so we're going to go to a question from Victoria Flaherty, who's a U0 student here at McGill. And she wants to know, what do you think are the big issues facing Canadian healthcare right now, and how do you plan to remedy them if you are elected?
Healthcare is a huge problem. It doesn't work without the transfer payments. You saw the big fight 5 weeks ago. The reason that's occurring, and I'll give you a good example, the Conservative Party had a debate last week in Halifax. I learned then that the hospital there, you can't drink the water in it. We're in Canada here. That's ridiculous. They do not have the budget to fix their plumbing so that people, the patients and the nurses can't even drink the water. That's crazy. Again, it's a problem where we've committed so much to healthcare, and it's a very noble cause. You know, if you have a catastrophic illness, there's no better country in the world than Canada, because we provide the best care and have the best technologies here. But it doesn't work without 3% growth. You have to have 3% growth to provide for both education and healthcare. Otherwise, you own the debt. We'll keep funding it, but we'll just keep racking up the debt on your credit card. Watch it happen. Remember, we were supposed to have $10 billion in deficit. We're now at 32. That's only 24 months. We'll just keep spending your money. Not mine, yours. You'll pay that debt for the rest of your lives. You should be worried about that. But thank you. Now your question.
I'm Mr. O'Leary. Thank you for coming out. My name is Sophia. I'm a third-year law student here at McGill. My question has two parts, but they're related. I've watched you on several interviews talk about your businesses and, you know, over the years, how many businesses you have in the United States, and that you spend almost half the year there every year. What can you do to reassure Canadians that your interests lie solely with Canadians and Canadian interests and not with American interests? For example, if you were to become Prime Minister and you had to negotiate NAFTA with President Trump, how can we know for sure that your negotiations will get a good deal for Canadians and not necessarily a good deal for yourself in those negotiations? And the second part is, if
you must be a lawyer.
Not yet.
You're going to be a good one, I can tell.
Flattery gets you nowhere.
Even a litigation lawyer for sure.
The second part of that is, if you become prime minister, will you divest yourself of your holdings in your businesses to further reassure Canadians of that,
Yes,
or put it into a blind
It's a
trust?
great question, and I'm glad you asked it because it is relevant. There have not been too many candidates in Canadian history that come from business, and I've luckily been very successful at it. I have about 40 different companies now in my portfolio. But let me answer the question about where I live and where I spend my time. It's not factual to say that I spend half my time in the United States. That's not true. I spend half my time outside of Canada, London, Geneva, Hong Kong, Thailand, Cambodia, any center that investment opportunities are occurring. Very often these are 2-day trips, etc. Last year I spent 182 days in, I think, about 30 countries. So I'm a global investor. And I'll tell you why that's a competitive advantage for all of us, because my plan is when we actually get our soil competitive, I'm going to be going back to those places because I work in the sovereign wealth business. One of my companies was actually very close to here on Sherbrooke is O-Shares. O-Shares is an indexing partnership between the NYSE and FTSE Russell in London. When a sovereign fund wants to invest in a market, they buy O-Shares, they buy an ETF. And so my job is to attract that capital from around the world. When let's say in Quebec we wanted to build some infrastructure, hydroelectric project for example, and we need $7 billion. I'm going to crisscross the world and find the most competitive deal and attract that capital to Canada after we're competitive. My Rolodex, Trudeau wishes he had it. Morneau wishes he had it. They're lightweights compared to who I know in the financial services industry globally. That's what I do. What I'm going to be doing is setting our soil so it's competitive. Then I'm going to get back on the road. I'm going to all of these countries and I'm going to say Canada is open for business again and bring that money back here to invest. Regarding my own investments, there's a fellow named Alex Kenjeev who is a card-carrying liberal that works for me that runs O'Leary Ventures. All of those companies are under his purvey, and I will put them in a blind trust. I have the only intelligent liberal working for me in Canada. And you know, you can imagine those morning conversations about policy, but he works for me because he's smart. The rest of my investments I'll turn to cash and indexes, so there's no conflict whatsoever. During the time I'm Prime Minister, I'll work for the Canadian people, but you know, I'm going to set goals and targets, like saying to you I'm going to grow to 3%, and then I'm going to make damn sure we get there. I don't like to make promises I don't deliver on. I am not your garden variety BS politician who says, I'm going to promise you 25 things and then delivers none of them. I'm promising you one thing, a job. And I'm going to bring an A-team to Ottawa. One of my talents, luckily this has worked for me my whole life, is definition of leadership, find great people and ask them to do extraordinary things for you because they want to be part of that team. People that meet the team that work with me, they're all your age. They do it because they want to be part of it, and they're entrepreneurs. Many of them have different, diverse backgrounds and all kinds of different opinions, but we work as a team together because we set a goal and we go achieve it. I mean, there's nothing better than to help an entrepreneur build a business, build a family, and make them grow and have those opportunities. It's not about greed, it's about personal freedom. When I teach, I talk about personal freedom. That's what it is. So those are my answers, and hopefully you, because I'm not one of these people that thinks lawyers are single-cell amoeba. I love lawyers. They're absolutely terrific. And it's a great pursuit you're doing. But at the end of the day, you're right. Those are very, very, very valid questions, and I do not want to ever have to be perceived to have a conflict of interest. So I'll do that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, so I don't actually know how to pronounce your last name. Kevin Rombu.
Can't be that bad if he's named Kevin.
So he wants to know, you've been referred to in the Canadian media as Canada's Donald Trump, given your shared backgrounds in business and television. Given that 3/4 of Canadians disapprove of Trump's presidency, how will you differentiate yourself from him and convince Canadians to vote for you?
Very valid question. There are some similarities. There's one. We both gained notoriety on business reality television, remarkably under a producer called Mark Burnett, so he's a mutual friend. But that's where it ends. If we built a wall around Canada, I wouldn't exist. I wouldn't be here. So I do not agree on many of his policies. He's dealing with other problems in the U.S. that we don't have here in Canada. We're going to have a very inclusive economy, a very inclusive country. I don't care what your race or religion is. You can come here, as I did. And that's going to be the primary mandate under which we're going to grow this economy. It's going to be competitive in a way that no other country is. Because if you can be inclusive, let's face it, 99.999% of people in every country want the same things you do. They want to live in peace, they want to grow a family and grow a business. That's 99.99999%. Those are the majority of people that want to come to Canada. I mean, we should have a vetting process, of course, but the definition of the human dream is provided by this country, always has been. And I can speak to you that way in honesty because I've lived it myself. In my life, I've been part of a family that's Lebanese, Irish, and Egyptian. It's extremely inclusive, and it's going to remain that way.
Hi there. Thank you, Mr. Kevin O'Leary, for coming out today. Before I get to my question, I just wanted some fact-checking about your answer on the housing crisis. I'm a student from Vancouver.
Yes.
And in fact, it's they call themselves liberals, but it's the right-wing government that lowered regulations on the housing market, and that's perpetuating the housing crisis. So don't take my word for it. Do your own research and be critical thinkers. Now, my question is on the environment. And you mentioned the importance of looking at the numbers, so let's do that. 35 million, just under 35 million, Canada represents 0.005% of the world population.
36 million.
Okay.
Don't lose those extra million.
All right. Even at 36 million, it still only represents 0.005% of the world population, but we contribute 2% of GHG emissions. So that's 400 times more than we should if we were having everyone on an equal playing field in the world. You also talk about the importance of accountability and truth.
You can just get
and
to
in
the
other,
question.
Yes, in other interviews, you've dodged the importance of environmental crises and climate change as an issue we should address. My question is, why aren't you addressing this issue since it is such an important issue to all of us?
I agree it's important. Thank you for the question. First of all, I don't agree I'm dodging it. I'm actually a student of it. I spent 4 years studying it. I just don't agree on the way we're applying it. I don't believe in taxing carbon, and I don't believe in taking that money and giving it to government to then redeploy. I would rather have strict regulations on emissions agreed to by industries, and I'll give you an example of what worked. For 40 years, the automotive industry in the United States and Canada agreed to targets on emission reductions. They were extremely successful during that period. And in fact, they innovated things like catalytic converters early on. They took their capital and they invented ways to stop it. I am for abiding by the Paris Accord. 73% of the people in this room want that. So do Americans. So do Mexicans. The whole North American continent agrees on those targets. It's how we get there that matters. If we turned off every light in this country and shut our economy down, it still wouldn't solve the global problem of emissions. The majority of emissions are coming out of India and China. Let's partner with them and help them solve that problem. We own technologies in this country, proprietary Canadian technologies developed in universities and in the private sector to help extract our energy that could be applied all around the world, and we're not doing it. Why not? There'll be an officer in every embassy in my administration that sells or provides licensing or gives that technology to countries that are trying to get on board. Now, China has said they're going to try and get on board with the Paris Accord. India's the same way. If we give them the technology to do it, it makes their jobs easier. Don't mistake a debate about how we should implement the strategy. I mean, I don't like the fact that cap and trade lets large companies pollute, and either should you. That's just wrong. It's to use money to buy your way out of your commitments and reductions makes no sense to me at all. You should get on board with that. Think about it.
Thank you.
All right. Unfortunately, we are out of time. I have been instructed because, as we all know, Mr. Kevin O'Leary is very busy. So, if we can all just give him one last round of applause to thank him for coming out today.
Thank you. And I'll say one more thing to you. I appreciate that very much. First of all, it was a very good discourse, and I think that's what we should do in free speech is always listen to people's ideas. If you want to make a difference in this election, you have to join a party. So I'm asking you to invest $15 in the Conservative Party, if that's your leaning. I want to bring you into the party and provide for you. You're going to hear me talk a lot of policy in the months ahead, but this should be your home, and that's what I want it to be. So $15 and vote. That's what matters. Thank you for your time.
All right, that's it. I don't know if there's any coffee or stuff left.